You want me to start omitting them?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our informational event on Laura's Law, Assisted Outpatient Treatment. I'm Janine Spotnitz, a program planner with Department of Health Services, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your afternoon and evening to be with us today. To start, next slide, I'll go over our agenda. So first, I will provide some Zoom housekeeping overview and our ground rules. And then I'll talk a bit about the community input process around AOT that we've had so far, as well as our timeline and some preliminary findings. Then the next 3 items will be really the focus of our conversation today. We heard from you all that you want to hear the voices of a provider who's currently implementing AOT. So that's what we will have a presentation from San Francisco Department of Public Health. And then we will have a panel of consumer and family member perspectives. We're really lucky and appreciative of our presentation and our panelists today. And then we will have time for public comment to hear from people. And then we will provide the link to the survey if you have not yet completed it. And thank you all for, again, for joining us. I see more people coming in. Excellent. Wait a moment for people to get settled. Okay, now let's go over our ground rules. Actually, our housekeeping. If you go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, the format for today will involve a presentation from our AOT provider. This is the San Francisco Department of Public Health. We have 2 individuals who will be joining us. Then we have a panel, and that is of consumer and family perspectives here from Sacramento County. And then we will have time for question and answer and public comment. And I'll go over that process when we get there. We have a timer on screen so that you can see how much time you have left, and we will remind you of that so that we're able to really hear from as many voices as possible and ensure that the time is distributed equitably. You'll see in the chat that you can submit questions to me. So if you have questions that you'd like to submit in the chat, you can do so to me at any time. And then during the question and answer period, we will just be going in the order that they were received and get to as many as we're able to cover. And then for public comment, we'll have a similar process. You can type your name in the chat if you'd like us to call on you, or you can type your comment for us to read it aloud. And then we'll also have time for individuals joining over the phone. If you're not joining via the Zoom app, we'll have time to hear public comment from people on the phone as well. Then I also wanted everyone to know this event is being recorded, and the recording will be shared publicly. So it'll be shared with our Board of Supervisors as well as with the entire community. It'll be posted online, and you can view it and share it for people to watch at their convenience. Great, and next slide. So for our ground rules, before I start to review them, I just want to first acknowledge that this is a hot topic and it may bring up strong feelings and opinions. It may also bring up people's traumatic responses from the past. For example, family members who've had challenging situations with family members who might not have wanted to participate in services, as well as, on the other hand, consumers who may have had past experiences with involuntary treatment and might not have great experiences with that. So I really just want to first acknowledge that some of this content and conversation may be difficult, and really want to make sure that we're being very respectful as we're having this conversation, as well as taking care of ourselves. So if at any time you need a break, I invite you to please do what you need to do. You can always catch up on the recording. And with that, want to ground us in our first rule of treating one another with kindness and compassion. So I think we all know what that means, but just to establish that foundation, that means that we're using respectful language. If we're disagreeing with one another, we're doing so respectfully. Absolutely no personal attacks will be tolerated. So please do not swear at one another or criticize others as well as ourselves. We aim to speak without offending one another, as well as to listen openly without getting defensive. And overall, following those agreements will allow us to have this important discussion and ensure that everyone is heard and respected. Then our second rule is around following the engagement and speaking process. So we have over, I think around maybe nearly 100 people on this event. So in order to ensure that we hear from as many people as possible, we really want to emphasize the importance of following the process. So I will again remind you of what it is when we get to each of the points for the question, answer, and the public comment. But essentially, if you want to ask a question or give a public comment, then you can either type out the question in the chat or type your name and whether you have a question or a public comment, and we will add you to the queue for those items. Again, to be mindful of time and everything that we want to cover today, we are limiting time to 1 minute per question and up to 2 minutes per public comment. So at that time, when you're called on, we'll ask you to unmute and time you, and then give you notice when the time limit is about to be up, and then will be muted. And then as well, to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to provide feedback, we will be sharing the link to the survey. And I know many of you have completed it, and really thank you for your feedback. Everyone will have the opportunity to complete the survey. It will stay open through tomorrow. And with that, so everyone who's present, we are agreeing, consenting to these ground rules. Then I would like to move on to the next slide to provide an overview of the AOT community input process thus far, our timeline, and then briefly share some preliminary findings. The goal of our community input process is to hear from you all, from the community and stakeholders, to provide input to the Board of Supervisors on whether to implement or opt out of AOT, assisted outpatient treatment. And there have been several conversations about this in a number of forums so far. I will briefly review them. The Mental Health Board had a special meeting and discussed whether to make a recommendation on whether to opt out or implement AOT. Ultimately, the Mental Health Board didn't vote to make a recommendation. There was a motion made to opt out of AOT that didn't pass. And there were public comment individuals on both sides of that decision. Then we held 2 stakeholder feedback sessions where we invited people to come and provide input in a survey format. And then the preliminary survey findings were shared with the Mental Health Services Act, MHSA Steering Committee on the 15th. And the MHSA Steering Committee voted not to use MHSA funds on AOT. However, I want to be really clear that the vote to not use MHSA funds is not the same as the vote on whether to implement or opt out of AOT. So those are different things, and they did not take a vote on whether to recommend the county to opt out of or implement AOT. Then that brings us to our third and final event today, which, as I described, will be featuring the perspective of a provider who is currently implementing AOT in San Francisco, and then the opportunity to provide feedback through the survey, which will be open through tomorrow. And then the feedback, we will have a final report that we will provide for the Board of Supervisors meeting, and they will hear this item, we're expecting in late May or early June. and that will be in time for the deadline by which counties are required to implement or opt out of AOT, and that's by July 1st of this year. Okay, the next slide. So this is I just want to give an overview of the preliminary report. So this is just of the individuals we've heard from so far. That's 245 individuals who've participated in the survey. And we will be sharing a link to that in the chat so that you can take a look and see the demographics of who's responded. So you can see the race, ethnicity, language, whether they're current residents or family members or employed in the county, and then the stakeholder groups that they represent. So you can see there the breakdown for family members, consumers, other interested community members, as well as representatives of boards and commissions, various service providers, and other professions. So that I encourage you to look at that report if you'd like to see the composition of folks who provided feedback. And then next slide. And then here is our summary of the responses that we've received thus far. And just to note that we excluded people who didn't live, work, or have family who live in Sacramento County. And the demographics do provide a breakdown of where people live, so you can see the distribution across different cities and unincorporated county. So here you'll see out of the 240 participants so far, 15% have expressed interest in opting out of Laura's Law. 73% of respondents expressed interest in implementing Laura's Law, and then 13% were neutral or unsure. And then after that summary, we have public comment, and highly encourage everyone to take a look at that. We tried to think about summarizing the comments, but didn't think that we could do it justice. People provided very thoughtful experiences and comments, and we didn't want to be overly reductive of the range and depths of perspectives by trying to summarize it. So again, I would welcome you all to take a look at and read the public comment in the link to this preliminary report that's being shared in the chat. And again, want to echo deep appreciation to everyone who completed the survey, and we'll be sharing the link for those of you who have not yet completed it. Okay, I know that was a lot of information. Again, we're sharing the link so that you can take a look and read it at your own time and convenience. And now I would like to move into our first presentation. This will be the overview of AOT from the perspective of a provider. Go to the next slide. And the next slide. And we have Christine Wright, who is a program manager with San Francisco Department of Public Health, joining us along with Jose Orbeta, who is a care team member. So we are asking our presenters to unmute themselves. Bear with us for a moment. Welcome. Do we have Christine and Jose?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
So shall I just jump in?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Dr. Christine Wright. I go by Chris, and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist with the San Francisco Department of Public Health. I've been the program manager of AOT and the Housing Conservatorship Program for DPH for about 20 months now. So came in right before COVID, and that's been fun. And we're joined by Jose Orbeta. Jose, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Jose Orbeta. I am a health worker too with the Department of Public Health, and I am a care team member, which basically is just kind of a fancy word for outreach worker. I've been with AOT for close to 3 years, and I'm very happy to maybe give some insight on what AOT in San Francisco looks like.
Can I get the first slide, please? All right. I'm sure all of you, it sounds like you've had numerous meetings and everything about this, so you're very familiar with what Laura's Law is, so I won't go into a ton of detail. I think that, it's court-ordered outpatient treatment for people with severe mental illness. I bolded and underlined the next point, which is AOT does not include a mandate for medication. So our court order doesn't compel anyone to use medication. We offer it as an option, but that's something that comes up a lot for us during the referral process. People either definitely do want medication or definitely don't. And so I think it's an important distinction from conservatorship, and it's a limit to what we are able to do in terms of our treatment, but it's the most misunderstood part of our program. So I wanted to really highlight that. It's our program's designed to help individuals who are cycling in and out of hospitalizations and incarcerations, are refusing treatment or have a hard time engaging with treatment. And our goal is to kind of reduce those hospitalizations, the victimization, the incarcerations. And our court order really relies heavily on the weight of the court. You're going to hear the words black robe effect, and that's really what it is. There's not an enforcement mechanism. It really is just having the benefit of a judge in a black robe asking people to work with us to try to, stop some of their cycle. Next slide, please. All right, so in San Francisco, and again, every county looks different, but this is what the breakdown of our program in San Francisco is. We have two kind of baskets that AOT falls into. The Department of Public Health, our program, is the kind of initial group. We take the referrals, we do the triaging, and we do the initial engagement. And that consists of a program manager, myself, a clinical supervisor, 2 clinicians, a peer specialist, which is what Jose's role is, a family liaison who also does outreach, but really focuses on supporting families of the clients involved. And then we take on clinical and peer interns from a variety of training programs in the city, and they shadow us in our outreach. Once a person has either voluntarily agreed to services or has been court ordered or entered into a settlement agreement, we work with a full service partnership, in this case, UCSF Citywide, and they're the ones that provide the ongoing case management, medication management if the clients are interested in, and continued outreach. And that team consists of a clinical supervisor who's an LCSW, 3 clinicians, a psychiatrist, a nurse, and a peer staff. Next slide. So again, I'm sure everyone's fairly familiar with the law at this point, but just really quickly, the people who can refer to us are, of course, the licensed mental health providers and things like that. One of the things that is different about AOT is important people in our clients' lives, family members, significant others, roommates, people who generally can't make these referrals are able to refer clients to us in order to, kind of catch some people who are a little bit more difficult to engage. And we work closely with them with the release of information, of course, in kind of supporting the clients with their important people in their lives. We can also get referrals from probation officers and parole officers. We don't get many. The vast majority come from the hospitals, jails, or current providers. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, I'm sure everybody's aware of this, but the criteria for AOT is, 18 years or older, a resident of, in our case, San Francisco, but in the resident of the county in which the services are being sought, diagnosis of the severe and persistent mental illness. It does need to be a mental illness. We frequently get people with primary substance diagnoses and not mental illness diagnoses, and this isn't actually a program that addresses those. unlikely to survive safely in the community without supervision. So people who are really having a hard time and deteriorating, as evidenced by 2 or more psychiatric hospitalizations and or incarcerations within 36 months. Or the other side of this is one violent act towards self or others in the last 48 months. So people who are kind of more of a public safety issue, we can take them on even without 2 hospitalizations. They have to be offered repeatedly offered the opportunity to engage in voluntary treatment. And we have to show that they're deteriorating the community. You know, if somebody was hospitalized twice in 2018, while they may meet our criteria technically, if they have not been hospitalized and are doing relatively well, we wouldn't open them because we definitely don't want to infringe on people's rights if they're not doing as poorly as what the AOT law requires. In that case, we would help them get involved with other services. We have to make sure that this is the least restrictive. So a lot of times AOT will come in before a conservatorship referral is made to see if we can engage them before an official official conservatorship is entered into. And we would need AOT would be needed to prevent deterioration resulting in grave disability, danger to self, danger to others. And another important thing that we look at with all of our referrals is this person likely to benefit from AOT? We get quite a few referrals for people who, you know, have demonstrated through the criminal court system that they won't follow up with court mandates, in which case AOT might not be the best option. So then we look at that to explore other options that may be more beneficial for the client. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is kind of the walkthrough process of how we do AOT here. And I do want to stress that AOT is different in every county. Each county writes their AOT implementation in a way that makes sense to them. So this is our county's program. And I included the number of referrals and everything. All of the numbers on here are from our 3-year report. So it's a couple years old, but it's a good snapshot. So in the first 3 years, we got 295 referrals. And we accepted or the people who met criteria were 129. So it's a relatively small number of people. So we had 129 in 3 years. Only 17 court orders were filed in those 3 years. And of those court orders, all but one continued to follow through with services past the end of their AOT engagement. Currently, I don't know if anyone's interested in current numbers, but currently, as of today, we have 36 open clients. 2 of them have been conserved. It was determined that they needed a higher level of care. We have 1 court order and we have 1 settlement agreement. So only 2 of our 36 are involved in any court proceedings, and 1 of them accepted it voluntarily. 22 are engaged in services, and we're just monitoring their engagement, which we do for a period of time to make sure that they don't fall off before we close them. And then 11 that we're still continuing to try to engage. Next slide, please. So again, this is specific to San Francisco. It might be different in your county, but we require a minimum of 30 days of outreach before filing a court petition. And we very, very, very rarely file on that 30-day. We really, really do try to engage people extensively before we go forward with a court petition. Again, that's specific to our county. LA County files as soon as a referral is taken. So it's kind of however your county decides to implement. So we will file a court petition after 30 days if the person continues to not engage in voluntary treatment and continues to meet the legal criteria, including the deterioration in the community. Once a court petition is filed, we serve the client and explain the court process to them. We link them with their public defender and make sure that they are getting legal representation. And then a court hearing is held. And either the person could engage in or agree to a settlement agreement, or if they're court mandated, then we go ahead and do a referral to Citywide and link them with intensive case management, usually within a day or two. And the court oversight, we have re-up hearings. In non-COVID times, we have re-up hearings every 6 months. The court timing is a little wonky with everything else right now, but we do have to submit again for an extension after 6 months, and AOT is terminated after 12 months. Next slide. Okay. So for AOT treatment, it really is individualized. It's based on whatever the person wants. We definitely make sure to include not just our agenda, but their agenda. If they want to reunite with their kids, then we make that a priority. If they want to, secure housing, that's a priority. We really do meet the client where they're at. And it's really, really flexible, maybe they want to reunite with their kids and then they decide that they're not ready for that, we'll change the treatment plan and focus on something else. So it's an constantly evolving level of engagement. Once again, it does not include involuntary medication order. It really is an engagement and an intervention tool. We try to make sure that the clients are feeling really like they're driving the bus in order to keep them involved with us. And again, the goal is to reduce hospitalizations and incarcerations. Next slide. All AOT is field-based, while both Citywide and DPH have offices that clients are more than welcome to come into. Kind of by definition, these are people who don't really want to engage with us, so they don't come to the office often. We do go out in the community. We go to, the SIP hotels. We go to the hospitals when we're allowed in. We go to jail to see them when we're allowed in. We'll meet with them in alleys, on street corners, at shelters, in food pantry lines, wherever they are, we will go and meet with them. And we're really focused on recovery and wellness. Again, we work with a full service partnership, and a big part of the work that we do is, even if we don't have a release for family members, we offer family support anytime we know of a family member. So, and I do want to give Jose a moment here to talk. We have a NAMI family group for family members. So we're offering support outside of just phone calls from us. So Jose, do you want to say anything about your group? Okay, Jose.
Hi, sorry.
There.
Yeah. So yeah, I just to piggyback on what Chris said, basically the peer from UCSF Citywide and my other peer partner, Charles Houston, and I, we decided that we wanted to add a after hours support group for family members and loved ones of our clients and some other Citywide clients. And it's really just to give the families a forum to pose any question that they have, get support by seeing that they're not alone, with their loved one. And so far in the first couple of meetings, we're finding that much like other support groups, that sometimes just hearing your story coming from a perfect stranger, is really impactful and helpful to know that that we're not alone in this journey with our loved ones, and that also, and on the other side of that coin, it's very difficult. I mean, this is not a simple thing that we're dealing with, and as much support as people can be provided, I feel is super key for just having a team by your side, and also just sometimes just a sounding board, and having people who will listen to your problems that are rather unique, but at the same time there are other people out there who are going through the same problems.
Thanks, Jose. And then lastly, as I mentioned earlier, AOT is not a long-term treatment option. We do time out at some point, our court orders and things. So we go from day one start off looking for how we can link people with ongoing services even after AOT does end. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are just, obviously a very small section of kind of services that we do offer and that we do try to link our clients with: medication, housing, primary care, vocational, substance treatment, specific resources for different populations, whether it's TAY, LGBTQ, veterans, peer support. This is just a small group of them. These are all things that we're thinking of and working with our clients to get them involved in from day one. Okay, next slide. So again, we're time limited, so we plan for linkage to long-term care, and we will advocate and assess for all different levels of care. We have clients who were in crisis and have, stabilized, and so maybe they don't even need ICM anymore. Maybe they could do with outpatient mental health, so we'll get them linked with an outpatient clinic. Maybe they do need traditional ICM, which is intensive case management, and we will link them with that. Or if conservatorship makes more sense for them, then we, kind of help facilitate getting everybody on the same page and work very closely with the conservator's office, both to get them linked with that and then also to support following their conservatorship and do a soft handoff on the other end. So. Okay, next slide. All right, so this one, since I'm kind of throwing around a lot of things about traditional intensive case management versus AOT, I thought I would kind of highlight the differences, because while our citywide partners are ICM providers, their program is significantly different than other ICMs in the city. So traditional ICM works with clients who agree to it and who are able to participate. Frequently, clients are closed if they, miss a couple appointments, or if they say, no, I'm not interested, in things like that with traditional ICM. So with us, whether you're voluntarily agreeing or court ordered, we do have a much higher threshold, longer term kind of, we're not going to close you if you miss 2 appointments. We'll keep trying. And frequently clients kind of move between the voluntary and the more court mandated. They'll link with citywide and then they kind of start to fall off. And so we go back in and we tell them, we're still here. We'd still really like you to work with these people. We talked at the beginning that there might be a court order, so we want to make sure that we're avoiding that kind of thing. So we're a lot more persistent, I guess. ICM, depending on, can't work with all insurance providers. So like if you have Kaiser, then Kaiser wants you to go to Kaiser for mental health, but they don't really offer intensive case management, at least in San Francisco. And so that's a real challenge for a lot of the agencies that provide ICM, because they can't get reimbursed. We will provide services no matter what your insurance is, or no insurance. So that's a difference. Another big benefit of AOT is that our ICM providers can only have 10 clients as opposed to the usual 17. And that small number allows for a lot more engagement, more frequent outreaches, more support, just like the more time to spend with the clients. So the clients are getting a lot more held and supported by them. And we also don't have a wait list. If a client agrees to services, we will submit a referral to citywide, and we can usually get their case manager out to meet with them within a day or two, versus depending on the program, some wait lists in the city can be anywhere from a couple weeks to over a year, until somebody gets linked up with a case manager. So that's a real big benefit. Again, our treatment duration is a little shorter, but we do link to long-term care. And then the accompanying services, I think all ICM provides outreach, crisis intervention, advocacy, engagement, rapport building. Additional things that happen with AOT is there has to be a housing plan. That's part of our requirement. As I said, we have our case managers have more capacity, so there's a lot more frequent outreach and support. And we have clinicians, peers, and psychiatrist outreach. Frequently with traditional ICM, the psychiatrists, the outreach worker, the case manager will try to get the person into the clinic, but the psychiatrist doesn't always go out. Our psychiatrists will go out, administer LAIs, meet with the clients in their homes or SIP hotels or things like that. So it's a little bit more support there. And then both will offer some sort of family support, though, as Jose talked about, we do have additional family supports, including a group. And then I wanted to touch on, I don't have a slide for this, but I wanted to touch on just a little bit about, from our 3-year report, about kind of what happened when we implemented AOT. So I'm going to go back to that 129 people that were referred that were opened with AOT in the first 3 years. And I wanted to say that there were 17 court orders in there, but 74% of the clients of that 129 reduced their psychiatric emergency services utilization. 91% reduced their inpatient hospitalizations, and 88% reduced incarcerations. And I think even more important to kind of the people who hold the money, of those 129 people, they were averaging $485,000 a month in utilization prior to AOT, and that dropped to $81,745 following AOT. So it was a drastic reduction in services. It was a drastic reduction in the experiences with these kind of traumatic environments like jail and psych wards and things like that. And it was also a very big drastic reduction in expenditures. So that's kind of all I have. The next slide has my contact information and the contact information for Charlie, who is the supervisor for the AOT citywide team.
Thank you so much, Chris and Jose.
Sure.
You have a few more minutes for some questions, and everyone feel free to write your question in the chat, or I see we have a hand raised. I will start with a question we received in the chat from Denise Piper, who asked, does SF have mental health court? Once justice involved, that seems available. I want to see services before the involvement with justice, or if the justice system isn't involved currently.
San Francisco does have justice court. There's the collaborative courts, which are on the criminal end. And then again, AOT is more on the conservatorship. So that's civil court. So I guess I'm not sure if that's answering the question. Sorry, I'm very visual. I'm like, I don't see the question.
Oh, yes. Here, I'll message it to you. And Denise, feel free to let us. Oh, good. Alex has it up. Okay. Feel free to message us if there was any piece of the question that you'd like to have further elaboration on. And then we have.
Okay. So yeah, we do have mental health court. There are various types of mental health court. And so some of them preclude the use of AOT, like behavioral health court is considered a higher level of care than AOT. So we don't get involved in those cases. But something like mental health diversion or drug court, we would be able to get involved. So we do have it, and there's just varying levels.
Thank you. We have a question from Lillian Glambin. What are demographics of participants, race, gender, experiencing homelessness, formerly incarcerated? Any observations of comparative effectiveness of AOT with Black clients, and what % are Medi-Cal billable?
Based on our 3-year report, I will give you, let's see, that was 59% male, 40% female, and 2% non-binary. Age range, we had 18%, 18 to 25. I don't know if you guys want me to get this specific, but I will. 27% were 26 to 35. 26% was 36 to 45. 19, 45 to 55, and then 5 each, 55 to 65 and 65 and above. 42% white, 23% African American, 16% Asian, 11% Latinx, 7% multi-ethnic, 1% Native American, 1% unknown. And again, this is all from the 3-year report, which I can, I think you have it, Janine, but I can also
Yes,
send a
we
copy.
have the link in the chat. So I would just
Okay,
encourage
great.
people to take a look
Yeah.
there for more detail.
So then in terms of risk factors, 54% had experienced homelessness in the previous 36 months. 63% had been incarcerated. 82% had had psychiatric hospitalizations, and 81 had PES, which is psychiatric emergency services. And they did not do or maybe they did, but I don't have it, the breakdown of efficacy within that, but I'm sure that exists somewhere and I can look for it.
Thank you so much. Now just a few more questions here before we move on to our panel. How are clients involved in the program development and implementation aspects of the program?
So I've only been here for 20 months and this was implemented in 2015. So I am not the best person to ask about that. I know that Angelica, who is my boss, who implemented AOT, she did around 60 trainings with the community, public meetings, involved clients. She presented to clients and different programs. I know she is very extensive in her engagement with everybody in the community. So I will say I'm sure that happened, and I know we do surveys and everything, and I know she takes everybody's feedback into account. I don't have the details because again, that was before I started.
Yes, okay, thank you. Then a question from Annette Mans. How do you engage the individuals and motivate them to agree? For those resistant to agree to treatment, how do you continue working with them over the outreach period?
Okay. Jose, this is your wheelhouse. You want to talk about how you get people to talk to you?
Hi. Yeah, so that's a great question. So bear with me. I actually tell my clients that if AOT was Walmart, that Charles and I are the greeters for Walmart, as in we're the people who, so what I mean to say by that is we don't actually hold any of the services ourselves, since, basically that's not our function. But what I like to do is it's not exactly befriending, but what we do is we just constantly show up. It's consistency, and we listen to people. And what I try to do is I try to find out, since we are dealing with people who are resistant to treatment, and or maybe it's because they have a bad taste in their mouth for the services that they've been provided, before. And so I really just try to listen and find out what it is about treatment, or what it is about the past providers that they've worked with that they don't like. And we really try to make sure that they're heard and understood. And like I said, I think the number one thing really is consistency. And as Chris pointed out earlier, one of the advantages of AOT in San Francisco is we outreach, constantly. We'll outreach someone daily if we have to. We'll outreach someone twice in the same day. We really try our best to show them that that we're just more than anything trying to be helpful. And sometimes, we get shut down on day one, but when they see that, wow, these people are coming by multiple times a week, and they're coming by, and I like to be exactly what we propose to be. So if I tell somebody that, hey, you know what, I'm going to come and try and offer you services once a week, and hopefully that you will accept these services. But I also let them know that, hey, once you tell me that, you know what, I'm not trying to have those services today, please leave me alone. I really just back off, but I do tell them, hey, you know what, I'll be back. And sometimes when they see that consistency, and they see that, that we're genuine in our wants to be helpful and help help, change the things that are going on in their life, like, a lot of hospitalizations or incarcerations that, we seem to be breaking through to a lot of people. And I've personally seen over the last 3 years, people's lives have changed quite drastically for the better.
I think another thing that Jose and Charles do that's really great is, I was a waitress for like 27 years, and there's something to be said for when somebody walks in and you're like, oh, I know what you're going to have. And they are great about that. They're like, oh, we're going to go see so-and-so. So we're going to need a bucket of chicken and a thing of vanilla soy milk, engaging people with food, engaging people with things that they need, but also showing them that something as simple as that, like that you are important enough and we care enough about you to know exactly what you're going to want and have it ready for you. I mean, it's a silly, small thing, but it matters.
Yes, thank you. And want to be mindful of people's times. I recognize that we have more questions, and just want to say the last one here around how is the program funded, and then what about Medi-Cal billable?
So we're funded on the DPH side, we're funded through MHSA, and then citywide bills Medi-Cal unless the person doesn't have Medi-Cal appropriate, whether it's Kaiser or doesn't have insurance, in which case they would work to get them insured. But then that comes from the general fund.
Okay. Thank you both so much for your time today, for being with us. We really appreciate learning from your experience. And I also see thanks from people in the chat. So our community is thanking you as well.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Great. Now we will move on to our panel. So allow us a moment on the tech. We are going to be unmuting our panelists. But before we start, I did want to, again, I know we've had some people join since I provided the ground rules. So I'd like to, again, remind everyone of our ground rules, treating one another with kindness and compassion and respect. I want to recognize our panelists are very brave, offer them a lot of gratitude, and want to ensure that we're all agreeing to respect one another's perspectives, even if they're different from our own. So again, we recognize people have strong opinions as well as potentially traumatic experiences around this. And I just want to highlight how important it is that we respect one another and listen to one another without judgment. And then with that, we will start with our first panelist. We have Anne Arneal. Each panelist will have 5 minutes to share what is your perspective on AOT. Anne is on the mental health board and is a consumer. And with that, Anne, I'll ask you to share what is your perspective on AOT.
Thank you very much, Janine. I apologize for my video. I'm coming from kind of a shaky internet connection. I'm a consumer from District 1 on the Mental Health Board, and I'm a past chair. I am not representing the Mental Health Board, however, this afternoon. I'm representing myself, and I'm speaking from my own experience and values and research that I have conducted. Everything I'm going to say is documented in a position paper that I've written with citations and web links to the documents, and they appear on page 8 to 12 in the community input preliminary report that has been put in the chat. I'm opposed to assisted outpatient treatment because all mental health services should be grounded in a recovery-oriented treatment system where clients can live a self-directed life. Self-determination and self-direction are the foundation of recovery. Assisted outpatient treatment is an involuntary treatment system. And although the program says it is recovery oriented, a program that obtains a self-direction. However, I am very sensitive to family members' concerns about their loved ones and their resistance to accepting mental health treatment. And I want to point out that there are a number of other techniques available to getting people to accept mental health treatment. One is LEAP, which is listen, empathize, agree, and partner method. LEAP gives family members and health providers a tool to persuade someone in denial with serious mental illness to accept treatment services. There's motivational enhancement therapy, which is a science-proven method that helps people in denial accept treatment. There is another beneficial option, which is peer support programs that provide role models who have recovered or are successfully managing their illness. Cognitive behavioral approaches have also been shown to be beneficial. You can also ask people about their goals. People with schizophrenia often don't respond well to criticism. Instead of trying to convince them that they're sick, ask them about their goals. Even if a person doesn't acknowledge being ill, it can help to clearly link a person's goals to taking medication to help them prevent relapse. I also want to emphasize recovery-oriented engagement, which is discussed extensively in an excellent NAMI report. They argue that if we want to improve the lives of people with mental illness and their families, we must shift to a culture that embraces engagement as a new standard of care. There are examples of 4 successful programs that have engaged difficult people very successfully. Lastly, there's psychiatric advance directives, which are legal documents that are drafted when a person is well enough to consider alternatives and then can be used when a person becomes unable to make treatment decisions. My final point is that we can achieve AOT outcomes using existing voluntary programs. Dr. Quist has pointed out that FSPs are used to provide AOT services, as was described by the San Francisco program. And Sacramento already has FSPs. Dr. Quist also said at the Mental Health Steering Committee meeting that the county has relentless engagement teams. Use those engagement teams to use the enhanced recovery-oriented services that I've described. Place those people in the FSPs without adopting assisted outpatient treatment. The positive outcomes of treaties, and I provide that documentation in my position paper. In conclusion, please meet the needs of these clients by helping them access services using our existing resources with recovery-oriented treatment methods rather than placing them in assisted outpatient treatments. Thank you for listening to my views.
Thank you very much, Anne. And I want to share that Anne's position paper was submitted as a public comment, so you can find it in the report as well. And then also realize I didn't introduce all the panelists at once, so you can see their names up here, and wanted to highlight that we have tried to have a balanced meeting, recognizing that the provider presentation included the pros. So you'll see that reflected here in our panelists, the attempt to have balanced time for all perspectives. And with that, I would like to invite David Bain from NAMI to share family perspective on AOT.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm a consumer. I am the executive director for NAMI Sacramento, and I talk with family members quite often about what's going on with their loved ones and with their families. And as a consumer, I want to see everyone living with mental health challenges get into recovery. However, some people need more help than others. I talk with family members who manage to maintain their loved one in a bedroom at home, with the person existing in the space while not working, attending school, or enjoying their life. The family member provides food and care for their loved one while sometimes feeling imprisoned in their own home as they cannot leave for any extended amount of time. Vacations are out of the question. Parents live in fear of what will happen when they pass, and no one is left to care for their child. Other family members do their best to care for their loved ones who, as a result of their untreated disorder, must live outside the home. Group homes provide a room for some, but many of these group homes are unsupervised and do little to provide safe, supportive environments. Meanwhile, others are living on the street, victimized, traumatized, and with some with self-medicating in a vain attempt at treating their disorder. And it's not just parents who talk to me. Children and siblings are also concerned. One emotion that comes through for all, children, siblings, and parents all feel frustration. They have tried getting service, tried getting treatment, and they've tried getting housing for their loved one to no avail. They want their loved one healthy and happy now. They want more for their families, and they're desperate for a solution. Sacramento County Behavioral Health has a variety of programs helping a variety of people. There are full service partnership programs serving clients. However, many of the most seriously mentally ill are not being served or are left behind by these programs. I receive calls every month from family members whose loved one either cannot get into an FSP or the FSP could no longer provide the service to someone who is resistant to receiving aid. So Sacramento County does not have programs available to everyone with a mental illness. There is a gap that assisted outpatient treatment can fill. There are those who are concerned about AOT's loss of some civil rights. AOT clients are not forced to take medication. They can still vote, work, go to school, drive a vehicle. Sacramento County does have the Care Plus program, which is a conservatorship program with a small service population. However, conservatorships take more civil rights than AOT. Jail takes even more civil rights, and death takes all of a person's civil rights. There are other ideas that have been brought to the county that could serve this population. However, none of those ideas are actionable now. Even with those potential programs in place, we are likely to still need some extra incentive to get the most seriously mentally ill human beings into those programs. We're talking about saving some lives. For those who need the extra help, let's get them into recovery now. Sacramento County supervisors should opt in with AOT. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. And now I would like to introduce our next panelist, Kano Hopper, who is a family member.
Thank you.
And would you share your perspective on AOT, please?
Yes, thank you. I tell my story publicly because my daughter, Christine, age 32, when she's managing her severe mental disorders well, she tells her own story publicly and encourages me to do the same. I know from over 12 years of caregiving and 8+ years of volunteering in the NAMI family programs that my story is not uncommon and that other caregivers like me do support AOT. Mainly, I support AOT because existing mental health services in Sac County have not met Christine's changing needs. From 2008 to 2020, Christine voluntarily engaged in all known available mental health services offered in Sacramento County, and family supported her in every step. These did include LEAP, CBT, DBT, NAMI peer programs, Cal Voices RAP program, and even motivational interviewing, but these were not enough. Christine did not receive the long-term rosy recovery promised and promoted. From August 2020 to February 2021, Christine was enrolled in an added service called Telecare, which is one of the full service partnership programs in Sacramento County that hopes to do everything an AOT program does. However, it didn't work completely for our daughter. By November, Christine's fixed delusions that she was not sick and did not need help blocked her from voluntarily accepting treatment for her mental disorders. Her delusion that COVID-19 renter relief meant she didn't have to pay rent led to her being unhoused. From December 2020 to January 21, Telecare workers did a great job trying to re-engage Christine in treatment and to take steps to housing, to no avail. On January 5th, 2021, the Telecare FSP licensed clinical social worker called for a 5150 hold to ensure Christine's health and safety, but the first responders and the CIT trained officers refused to transport Christine to safety. Christine was left unhoused and unwell in an open field with a winter storm on its way. And sadly, she was too unwell to live safely with family. The Telecare FSP program dropped Christine in February 2021 because she did not produce enough evidence-based progress. She failed the program. The FSPs do follow the recovery model of care, but that means failure first should lead to the next higher level of care. No other services were secured to help Christine. That's my main point today. Another service Christine experienced was involuntary psychiatric hospital care. At first, these did get her back on her feet and solidly into recovery mode. But after 5 involuntary psych hospital stays in 2020, Christine stopped voluntarily continuing her aftercare treatment plans. These involuntary holds are terrifying and traumatizing to Christine and to family. And these lead to less trust of the system and less faith that her recovery efforts will be long lasting. AOT could have helped with adherence to treatment at this juncture. Also, Christine did not yet qualify for long-term conservatorship, such as Care Plus, which is involuntary. AOT gives caregivers a way to refer a loved one to receive longer-term help to adhere to treatment plans while living in our homes and with other roommates. It is with a very sad heart that last week on 4/14/21, Christine received another county service for her mental illness, incarceration. This didn't have to happen. Christine could have gotten better long-term treatment long ago. AOT could have been the key to keep Christine linked to and engaged in services. Instead, she was arrested on felony criminal charges of assault with a deadly weapon. Personally, I don't think she could have tried any harder, and I don't blame her for her illness progression. And I don't think my family or the FSP workers or even the officers could have tried harder. I think the current system of care allows for a dangerous gap in services that Christine fell into. MHSA Prop 63 funds are meant to provide services to all people with serious mental disorders with no gaps. The AOT laws are written to be implemented without discrimination or criminalization to reach people like Christine who are not served or currently underserved or worse, served criminally. Again, I'm not alone in this dilemma. Many families face the heartache and struggle of seeking additional services when the illness symptoms are escalating beyond reasonable in-home care. We want to be the recuperation and recovery beds. We want to continue saving Sac County millions of dollars, but we need help to do so. AOT is one way to help us help the people who need it most. For more information, you may email me or go to capitalweekly.net to read the recent article about our family. Thank you for all the service that all of you provide and have done so for many years, especially family caregivers. Thank you.
Thank you, Kano. Now I would like to invite our next panelist, Leslie Napper, who is on the Mental Health Services Act Steering Committee and will be speaking from a consumer perspective.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Kano, for sharing, and everyone that's spoken so far. Thank you. And San Francisco County for your presentation. I am here not speaking on behalf of the Mental Health Services Act Steering Committee. I am speaking on behalf of Leslie Napper. And I am opposed to AOT. I'm a mental health consumer. I'm opposed to AOT. And I would like Sacramento County at this time to opt out. I was an adult child living with a serious mental illness that was untreated. I am the story. I am your daughter, Kano. I am your loved one. And it took an FSP. It took the multiple hospitalizations. It took all the places where your children have gone, your adult children. The burned bridges with family members, etc. It took an FSP to reach me when I was locked up in a psychiatric facility with no understanding, little insight, but it took an FSP here in Sacramento to reach out to me, someone that looked like me, someone that has been there, done that, someone that was able to walk into that environment and speak to me, and with my hair unkempt in a hospital gown, a hot mess. And so was able to see the me that I remembered myself to be. I was just I had a serious mental illness and wasn't doing well. It took that FSP to invest in me, to bring me into their services. It took that FSP to engage and re-engage with me so that I met those appointments. If I wasn't able to make the appointments, if I missed an appointment, they invested in me enough to come find me. They invested enough to encourage my family members to meet them. I had a housing plan. I had all the pieces that AOT offers. The FSP here in Sacramento offered all of those services to me. It was a one-stop shop. Everything was there. There were support groups. There was much involved. There were volunteer opportunities for me to reclaim my life. I did want to go back to work at some point. And so all of these pieces, this strength modeling, this client-centered, where I felt that I was driving my treatment services. And so all of these pieces that we're asking of AOT, our FSPs already give us. I don't believe that we need AOT in Sacramento County. Sacramento County is heavily resourced. And we do have to fill the gaps. That is true. We don't have any front door service or referral opportunities for our family members to refer our caregivers, to refer my peers that are having a hard time engaging or getting linked to services. We have SB 803 now. We can engage in our peers for services to help our FSPs with their engagement and re-engagement strategies. Maybe you can draw down some Medi-Cal dollars now. I don't know, right? But I don't think that we need AOT to do these things that our FSPs should already be providing. I don't understand why a privileged few, because I'm saying that AOT also is not racially equitable. It just is not. We have Blacks overrepresented in so many spaces, and no, with all due respect to everyone, it is not across the state, it is not equitable. And I'm saying, why are we all not eligible for the services that the FSPs offer, the privileged few that would come through an AOT program? Are we not all eligible for those services? I'm saying to Sacramento County, let's shore up our gaps. Let's opt out of AOT at this time. We have innovations dollars coming out that with a forensic focus. Let's create a front door for our referrals for the family members and caregivers. Let's figure out, let's make it equitable across the board. We have Dignity Health. We have the Wellness Recovery Center where anyone, no matter your status, can come in. We have Well Space, which we just learned about, doing amazing work. There's so many things that are happening now in Sacramento County. I'm saying Sacramento County opt out at this time. I want to defer the rest of my time to the next person. So I believe this Megan is one of our providers that provides a service that is open to just about anyone, where you don't have to have a specific insurance. So Megan, please go, you know your business better than I do, but these are the kind of things that I believe that Sacramento County should continue to invest in. NAMI was just a recipient of one of our Cal Mesa PEI grants. Although time limited, if the work is great, why not incorporate them into our general delivery system? So there's much happening, and I think that Sacramento County should continue to invest what exists, fill our gaps, and we do not need AOT. Please opt out.
Thank you, Leslie. Now I will invite Megan Stanton, the Executive Director of Consumer Self-Help Center, to speak from patients' rights advocacy perspective.
Good evening. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Megan Stanton, and I am a consumer. I'm also a family member, and I'm currently the Executive Director for Consumer Self-Help Center. And we have the contract for patients' rights advocacy services here in Sacramento, as well as we are currently operating 2 wellness recovery centers here in Sacramento as well. I oppose any increased involuntary services. So that includes AOT, primarily because I have real concerns about how involuntary services are used currently in the system, and how involuntary services have sort of traditionally been abused historically in the mental health continuum of care. Currently, as a patient's rights advocacy program, we are doing what are called the involuntary the hearings for involuntarily detained people in the psychiatric hospitals. And currently, Sacramento has 490 acute care beds, with an additional 117 bed facility coming online here in the very near future. What's important about that is that's a lot of acute care beds for a community our size. And part of that's due to the fact that we're sort of one of the largest communities in the North California area. So a lot of the smaller counties further north from us rely on our services, especially in the acute care hospitalization domain, to assist them in providing their mental health treatment to their constituents in their counties. So we see a lot of out-of-county clients in those beds. But what is striking to me is that it is entirely legal to receive services at psychiatric acute care facilities voluntarily. I know this because I went to one voluntarily. However, currently, it is almost impossible to get admitted to an acute care psychiatric facility on a voluntary basis. You must go to an emergency department, be evaluated. You're generally placed on a 5150, which is a 72-hour hold, because of a number of different issues. You can be placed on multiple 5150s, so you can wind up in an emergency room for longer than 3 days awaiting inpatient care. Even if your symptoms have resolved, even if you can make a plan for your own safety and can connect with outpatient, you will still remain in that emergency department generally until you get evaluated by a psychiatric facility. So you're pretty much stuck until you get that evaluation. Then you are transferred to an inpatient psychiatric facility where you are placed on an additional 14-day hold, not necessarily because you're refusing services, but because basically it is inconvenient, or it's more convenient for the facility to place you on an involuntary hold and detain you for up to 14 days. Of the 490 beds, in February we did there were 557 hearings, holds. Of those, we did 447 hearings and 26 people signed in voluntarily. That is like 10%. And that's typical. That's not unique. We do this every month, and I've been doing this for, since 1995. So, I mean, this isn't COVID. This isn't a trend. The culture in our mental health community, especially in that acute care, is that we are, concerned about liability. So we place everybody on an involuntary hold, and there are a few exceptions who we allow to be voluntary. It's probably not racially equitable. I doubt anybody as a matter of fact, most people don't even really seem alarmed that this is happening. Most people feel like this is just a reasonable way of doing business at this point in time. And there really is at this point in time, if I were to need inpatient hospitalization again, I'm almost certain I would have to be involuntarily detained in order to get that treatment. Even though I was voluntary, I've always received services voluntarily, it wouldn't matter. It's the only way you can access those services. And it is extremely traumatizing to people. And my concern is that if we continue to use involuntary detention as a way of coercion into treatment, that instead of all of our FSP beds or slots being occupied by voluntary clients, we'll see the same trend. Eventually, over time, you'll have to be involuntary to get one of those opportunities or to get that level of treatment, because they'll be completely filled with people who are involuntary, because it's just, quite frankly, easier to control people than it is to engage them. It's hard to continue to work and develop relationships and engage people. And even though these programs currently seem to have a lot of, emphasis on being client-centered and working to engage clients. I don't think anybody, when they wrote the involuntary detention laws around acute care, believed that it was ever going to be necessary to involuntarily commit people who wanted treatment. But about 2/3, 66% of the clients that we interview say they went to the hospital, they want treatment, they want to work with the doctor, and yet they are still there against their will, and there are consequences to that. People are denied access to jobs. They can't work on, they can't work in law enforcement. They can't go join the military. They can't work on military bases. A lot of job restrictions can occur because you've been involuntarily detained. So there are some consequences to involuntarily detaining people, especially when it wasn't even necessary in the first place. In addition to what I feel are abuses of our existing involuntary treatment system, there have
Thanks,
been—
Megan. Thank you so much. I have now recorded your time, and I gave you a little extra time that Leslie had given you. Can you please make your concluding remark?
Well, I was going to say there have been, successful outreach programs in the past. We already have conservatorship as a civil commitment tool, and enforcement of AOT is very difficult. It would be very challenging to enforce the AOT court orders. Thank you very much for your time and listening.
Thank you so much. Now I have been receiving some questions in the chat and would like to remind everyone that we have some time for questions for our panelists, and then we will have time for public comment. So if you would like to sign up for either of those, please write your name in the chat. And I will start with our first question. Oh, the question was about the written comments that have been assembled somewhere. So all the written comments you can find in the community input report, which was shared in the chat and will be shared again shortly. Now, does anyone have a question for our panelists, for our consumer perspective or our family member perspective? And if there are no questions, then we'll move into public comment. We did have several people who signed up for public comment. Okay, I think we can go to public comment then. Just checking the chat here, making sure I didn't miss any questions. Okay, we do have let's see here, bear with me for a moment. Okay, we have a question that's not directed to a particular panelist. This may just need to be flagged for the future. The question is, how many residents of Sacramento use those 490 beds? Is that something anyone in our panelists would like to speak to? Okay, I think we will just flag that for future follow-up. Then I would like to move into public. Oh, Leslie, did you want to respond to that? Oh, no, but just that you are muted. I see that. Yes. So panelists, please just, if you would like to respond to that, just message me in the chat. We will unmute you. Okay, then I think not seeing other questions, I would like to move into public comment now. Thank you again so much, panelists, for your perspectives. And if there are other questions for you in particular, then I may come back to those. So for our public comment, as a reminder, we have 2 minutes per person. And again, reiterating our ground rules of respectful engagement and no attacks. So please be mindful of that. Oh, and I did just receive a response from Megan. Thanks so much. The answer is all Sacramento County residents use the existing 490 beds in Sacramento. Additionally, other counties send their clients to Sacramento as well. Okay, now starting our public comment. We actually had one that was written from Jenna Abbott. I will read it. I strongly believe we need any and all the tools available to us, and AOT is a necessary and useful tool. I see daily people who are mentally unwell, unable to care for themselves, and being abused and preyed upon in the street. They are not mentally competent and are unable to see that they need help. I have family history with this, and we in Sacramento County need this tool. Thank you, Jenna. Now we have Wade Brynelson, and my apologies if I mispronounce your name. Wade, we are unmuting you, and then we'll start the clock once we hear you begin to speak.
My wife and I support Sacramento County adopting and implementing Laura's Law. In 2018, I made 3 presentations at the Sacramento County Mental Health Steering Committee and the Mental Health Board. Our Laura's Law Advocacy Committee met with all county supervisors individually in 2018. I also made a presentation in 2018 at the Board of Supervisors Budget Committee. I was told by the committee chair that advocates like me thought that Laura's Law was, quote, a silver bullet, and he dismissed me. If the county had implemented Laura's Law in 2018, my wife and I don't believe that our son would be in jail today. He has schizophrenia and refused treatment once he went off his medication. He also refused to participate in treatment or voluntarily participate in a full service partnership. He has anosognosia like 50% of those with schizophrenia. We are very disappointed that the county didn't decide to implement Laura's Law in 2018 or 19. My wife and I would have taken advantage of Laura's Law and the judge included in it if Sacramento County had adopted it then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have a hand that was raised, Diana Burdick. Give us one moment. There we go.
Am I here?
Yes, and now we're starting in 2 minutes.
All right, first I'd like to say that I want to thank all the individuals that are attending this meeting and those that were from the MHSA Steering Committee members. I applaud you for donating your personal time to a crisis in Sacramento. I also want to state that I think that the timing of the MHSA Steering Committee's vote on whether to recommend their funds be used for opt-in or to opt out was premature last week. This vote should have happened after today's presentation. Sacramento County has numerous wonderful programs for individuals that have insight into their mental housing and employment needs. Unfortunately, there is a small group that are unaware they need assistance of any kind. Some are delusional or resistant to receiving housing, food stamps, healthcare services, let alone admit that they need any type of mental health services. This is a group I feel that has been underserved, underrepresented, or even acknowledged. I would like to address 3 points I think that I did not fully articulate in the past. I have heard comments that the AOT program is too costly. My son has been incarcerated 12 times in the past 3 years, meaning he has gone to court for 12 different offenses. During this time, he has met with several different public defenders, different judges, moved between Sac Main and RCC. I want to know, what is the difference? You know, how is AOT going to cost more than that? I have heard individuals
20
that
seconds
comment.
left. Please
Okay,
make your concluding remarks.
I'm just going to end up saying at the end is that I have a son who could still have a good life if he had help. He does not understand that he needs help. He thinks I am controlling him with a tooth that I had inserted in him. He is delusional and he will not get the help without someone reaching out to him. I ask for you to give him some hope, give him an option.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Diana. Next, we have Tiffany Carter.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. My name is Tiffany Carter. I am with Access California, a program of Cal Voices. I'd like to just start off by drawing attention to the fact that there's a huge lack of representation here, even within the panel of persons of color, cultural diversity and inclusiveness of the population that Sacramento is made up of, all the populations. It's not appropriate, honestly, for decisions to be made on services that will impact all persons without as many of the diverse populations at the table to provide their voices. Sacramento truly does need to do a better job at engaging these diverse populations that are not currently here. The people deserve a robust outreach and engagement process in this topic, as it will take away funds from meaningful supports and services that are currently in place. Additionally, I'd like to just state that when we talk about AOT, I'd like to speak to the statements made in our ground rules regarding the fact that people have had traumatizing experiences. Let's just stay there for a minute. We're discussing whether or not we should implement a service that consumers are consistently stating is not their preference, is not based in recovery-oriented services, and that trauma has been a lived experience of theirs with this service. Trauma. That to me says it's a no-go. And I'd like to just end with, let's pretend that when seatbelts became a thing, that this life-saving device, unfortunately, very few drivers and passengers were using them accurately, and that this new technology of restraint was implemented that was much more costly and not necessary. Had we utilized our seatbelts the way that we should have and really advertised them in the way that they should have, then we could have utilized this wonderful service that was going to be saving lives and really providing people with a service that is just above and beyond what this new technology is. So I'm going to end with saying, I'm utilizing that as an example of let's invest in the MHSA programs and uplift them the way that they were supposed to be, because we know they work, they're successful, they give people a voice and a choice. They're recovery oriented and have been proven to be effective. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Now, Heidi Sanborn.
Yes, hi. Won't be showing my face. I ended up in the ER today with a family member myself. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for this discussion. It's long overdue. My story is my mother suffered with paranoid schizophrenia for her entire adult life. I tried to run away at 5 because I knew she scared me. I was her caregiver towards in the last 10 years of her life. My husband and I had to conserve her to get her help. And every year I had to fight to keep her, but she was safe and healthy and had a roof over her head and lived independently in an apartment. But her disease did not let her see that we were trying to help her. She thought we were trying to kill her and with the medicine. But yet every time she went off the meds, she would do something very dangerous to herself and threatened other people and ended up in jail multiple times and homeless multiple times. We're very lucky I got to hold her hand and say goodbye at the very end in a peaceful way. It could have been much different, but we really need Laura's Law. There are people like my mother who are just so sick. Their brain, the decision-making organ is broken, and expecting it to work to make a good decision when they're that sick. Like I said, this is not for everybody. It's only for those who are really, really in need. And I really urge the county to move quickly to help the people like my mother. We were lucky, and the next family may not be. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Elizabeth Pataki.
Good afternoon. I am appreciative of this marvelous discussion and I find I cannot comment on the services available. I am speaking as a family member with a person who absolutely could not ask for help, who denied all sickness, who did things that were so harmful to himself. So yes, traumatic to himself and to the family. We tried everything to get him services, to do what we could, because this individual would not get help and could no longer live in a family situation. He then ended up out on the street, and ultimately, because of inappropriate behavior, lost his job, went on to be arrested, finally got back on his medicine, and got into the family court and was helped through that. But if this service had been available, if somebody could have gone out to him, like the gentleman, to outreach, because this person would not listen to family or friends, that would have made such a difference. Someplace where he didn't feel like he'd necessarily have to be in the hospital, but could be heard and listened to and visited. So I am strongly supportive of the AOT. Not everyone can ask for help. Many are too sick to acknowledge, or they're afraid to go back into the hospital, as this individual was. So I'm hopeful that the Board of Supervisors will approve of this additional service for those who cannot help themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we have Farah Hess.
Yes. So can
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi.
Thank you. I firmly support the AOT program. And I would ask the Board of Supervisors to approve the program. I understand all the different aspects of the people who are speaking today. I have a son who has paranoid schizophrenia, he is severely disabled. And I think that AOT could help him because he does not have the insight at this time to know that he needs help. He has gone more deeply into alcohol and speed. I don't know what other kinds of drugs, street drugs he's using, but he's threatened me numerous times, physically a couple times, so that I no longer feel like I can go and see him at his tent because I'm afraid he will injure me. He's injured a man at a food market. It had caused a fight with him. I've understand that he's also tried to handcuff a couple of people. And his behavior has gotten more severe. I cannot reason with him. I tried even to hire an attorney and tried to do a conservatorship, and that was a waste of time and money.
Thank you, Farah. Can you please make your concluding remarks?
Okay. He has gone through all of the services that Sacramento County has to offer in the past 35 years that we have both lived here. And I really, really have faith that the people at the workers at AOT would be able to get through to him. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Mary Ann Bernard. And for those of you who can't see the list, I'll announce the next few people. So then Garland Feathers and then Lois L.
Hi, I'm Marianne Bernard. I have a severely mentally ill son, and I am also a lawyer, and I'm very familiar with the Mental Health Services Act and commitment laws in general. First, I want to say it is an extreme mistake for the county not to use MHSA funds to pay for AOT. And if they wanted to, they could use the kind of funds that the mentally ill people who are already mentally ill or severely mentally ill don't get at, which are prevention and early intervention funds. There is a specific statutory and regulatory basis for that. I'm going to send it to every board member, and I'm going to send it to Alex Track, and I will type my email in the comments, and if anybody else wants it, I will send it to them. But that would allow people who are sick to get at money that is normally reserved for people who aren't sick yet, and that would be a good thing. Second, I want to emphasize that while voluntary treatment is always best, AOT and Laura's Law are for people who cannot volunteer for treatment. They cannot do it. To save their lives, they cannot do it because they don't think they're sick and because they are delusional one way or another, often very paranoid. We know from massive amounts of data around the country, which I supplied, and I have yet to see in the documents that supposedly have all the comments in, but again, I will supply my email and give it to anybody who wants it. It shows that AOT works, it saves lives, it eliminates a lot of human misery, it saves a great deal of money, and contrary to one statement that was been made here, in every study I have seen, AOT recipients like the program. They appreciate it, they are glad they are on it. So, and it is finally the best way possible.
Please make your concluding remark.
It is the best way possible to fight stigma because this small group of people is the group that causes the stigma for everyone else. And if you want to fight stigma, you need to help them instead of ignoring them. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Garland Feathers.
Yes, my name is Garland Feathers. I have been a mental health consumer for the past 35 years. And I do want to state that I vehemently oppose the AOT program as discussed. I will not go into any detail. I just want to support the positions that were presented by Ms. Arneal, Ms. Snapper, and the other panelists. I forget her name, Ms. Stanton, I believe it was. So I do support what they did state, and I just wanted to again state that I'm against the AOT program as presented. But we have the opportunity to opt in at any other time on a yearly basis. So it's not like this decision is imperatively what's lacking the word to say it. It's not, it has a huge immediacy to it. So thank you for letting me speak. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Now we have Lois L., followed by Andrea Crook, and then Susan McCrea.
In 2002, Laura's Law and AOT became a civil law, not criminal. The new law created lots of fear of forced treatment, coercion, violating basic civil rights. Then to fund AOT, the California voters passed in 2004 Proposition 63, or MHSA, to fund mental health services. 20 years later, we now have data. AOT saves money. Last week's steering committee, it was stated, I can't find the data. There's no data. Then without the data, recommended against using MHSA funds for AOT. I was pleased when Dr. Quest showed a slide revealing how AOT saves money, and then he said FSP saves the same amount. Later, I realized we were talking about two completely different groups. He was referring to clients who do well in self-referred treatment plans. To be fair, these plans under FSP work if they stay in treatment. They have good caring staff who want the best results for their clients. AOT outreaches to the most vulnerable who cycle through the revolving tragedy and may lack insight to their illness. The small percentage of SMI would benefit from this mental health tool with court oversight. Otherwise, they will deteriorate to a point where they are in danger to themselves or put our community at risk. This data comes from Treatment Advocacy Center 2019. Contra Costa County is similar in population to SAC and began AOT in 2015. They've had 39% reduction in number of crisis episodes, 15% reduction in jail times, 45% reduction in number of individuals in criminal justice system, 31% in homelessness. Santa Clara and Alameda County both suggest a possible 50 clients or less, each costing an average of $27,000 to $40,000 annually. The cost of my
Can you please
son's,
make your concluding remarks?
the cost of my son's 1 week stay in psych hospital was around $6,000. It puts that revolving door in perspective.
Thank you. Now we have Andrea Crook.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm here to ask of you to not consider AOT. I think AOT for the overwhelming client population is the worst nightmare, and it is absolutely a civil rights issue. It takes away everything that we fought so hard to incorporate and embed a recovery-based model. A vote to approve AOT is a vote to pretty much divert critical mental health resources to AOT programs, regardless of actual community need. AOT is antithetical to the recovery model and prioritizes the very fail first approach that California voters rejected when we passed MHSA in 2004. You've heard me say this before. It is completely antithetical to the recovery model. It also takes away local control, and prioritizing funding for this further stigmatizes mental health clients and discourages clients from seeking services for fear of being court ordered. Please don't be on the wrong side of history, because if you push this through, you will be on the wrong side of history. History will judge you. Please opt out. I would like to gift the remainder of my time to Susan Gallagher.
Thank you. Now we have Susan McCrea, followed by Angelina Woodbury.
Okay, well, thank you for this time. And also, I really respect everyone's point of view, but I must give mine. I have been on the mental health board, and now I'm on the steering committee, and died in 2010. When I see the glowing reports of what happened in San Francisco from Christine Wright and Jose, I think my daughter could have been helped by that program. She is not with us. I think a lot of other parents, I have to speak for them. They might lose their children because they don't tiny percentage of people. It does not threaten most consumers, it does not threaten them. It is only for those that do not know that they are ill and need help. And I have heard at the mental health board, just when I went to the last meeting that we had, there were several consumers that said, oh, I wish we'd had this program. It would have helped me. We hear David Bain, who is a consumer. It is not really consumer family pitted against. We must not see it that way. There are many consumers that are now seeing this as a possible help for them. And I know it seems very fearful. We do not want to go backward. We want to have an excellent program like there is in San Francisco. No one wants us to go backward and coerce people. And just to add, I have very little time left. I'm on the mental health steering committee, and I think our decision was premature. I really want us to look at this again with all the information that we're getting and try to see that this is just to help that very small bit of people and help these families that are crying out. They're crying out for help for their loved one. How that feels.
Can you please make your concluding remark?
That's all I have been there as a family member, and I know what it's like to be so frustrated and so unable to help your loved one. There's nothing worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Angelina Woodbury, followed by Leslie Napper.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Angelina Woodbury. I am an advocate in my professional life, and in my personal life, I am the daughter of a mental health consumer, a consumer myself, as well as the mother of a consumer, and I'm married to a consumer. And I would like to say that I'm against outpatient treatment. My mother passed away at the age of 43 due to complications with her mental illness. And I'm absolutely 1000% convinced, no matter what you would have told this woman, no matter what you would have presented to this woman, she would still be gone right now as a result of her mental illness, because people do not get help, respond to help, follow through with help under coercive situations. They get help when they need it, when they want it, when they feel it's best for them. Taking away the client voice and client choice flies in the face of what the MHSA was founded to do, and that was support client voice and choice. AOT is a coercive tool. Anytime you put anyone in front of a judge, that's coercion. I don't care whether or not the judge has any actual teeth. I've been at every single meeting concerning AOT, both public and private, and I must say the following. The county officials constantly say that the decision to opt in or out of AOT is up to the Board of Supervisors. That is false. The Board of Supervisors listens to its county departments 90% of the time and makes decisions that they recommend. The ball is in your court, Sacramento County Behavioral Health. You have the decision-making power. You get to recommend whether or not we opt in or opt out of AOT. Do not take that power lightly. Do not brush it off. You have the ability to say, no, we're going to side with our consumers, and we're going to say that we're going to invest further in our FSPs, invest in a front door referral service for families, provide them the support they need to help take care of their loved ones. You have that power, Sacramento County. Please do not take it lightly.
Thank you. Now we have Leslie Napper, followed by Susan Gallagher.
Thank you. Every time we have this conversation, it's just, and we've been talking a lot about it so recently, and I'm literally in tears. I'm saying that I am a consumer of a serious mental illness. I am your adult child that you're talking about, the one that you're grieving about. I am that child. And it took an FSP that was truly invested in the people that they serve to invest in me. And I did have to come around to it myself. I'm hearing the stories and I'm looking at all the numbers, even from our presenters with San Francisco County. I'm looking at the numbers all over the state with AOT is not equitable. It will not serve someone like me. It will serve someone that looks different than me. And I don't understand why. Why are we going to take just for a privileged few to get these type of services that everyone of us in the FSPs and through our mental health general delivery system deserve? I'm saying let's opt out of AOT. Let's fill the gaps. We have systems in place now. They need opportunity to do their work. And so opt out now, Sacramento County, I plead, and allow what we have going on. We have Alternatives 911 coming up that will better support the parents calling in. Let's get a front door service for our family members that are truly grieving and vicariously traumatized through their adult child's experiences. And I'm saying it is unequitable. Look at the numbers, even the report that we have, look at the numbers. It is overwhelmingly in support, but look at the demographics of who's responding with all due respect. And I don't want to disparage anyone, but don't disparage me or people that look like me. I'm saying FSPs, please, what do you need to do better in our engagement and re-engagement strategies without AOT? Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have Susan Gallagher, followed by Kaino Hopper, and that will conclude our public comment. Susan? Oh, sorry, you're on mute. Let's make sure we can get you unmuted here.
Sorry.
There we go.
Ready? Hi, my name is Susan Gallagher. I'm the Executive Director of Cal Voices. I'm also a consumer. I'm also a family member. And I have many loved ones who have received services in Sacramento County. I've also been the director for 25 years. So I think I have a pretty good handle about what this community needs. When people speak of them, I heard a lot of them, the people on the street, the people that have no insight. They're speaking of us. And so I want to talk about some of the fundamental problems that we see with the AOT program. I think that the folks from San Francisco did a good job, and I'd much rather see us take on the approach of San Francisco than LA. However, even that San Francisco folks said that they only serve 36 people a year. Is this really going to be a solution for your loved ones? I feel for the family members. I feel for the people that are on the street that need help. But what we are not really looking at here is that we haven't come up with a solution for that. AOT is not a solution for that. All it is, it creates a couple of FSP slots for them. That's all anybody's talking about here is some FSP slots for the AOT program. This is nothing new, nothing special. I mean, it definitely would get better outcomes from our FSP than other things, but I think even tonight we heard from some of the family members that there's some problems with that. We also recognize that, and I think this was said by the folks from San Francisco, that people go to the front of the line when they have the court order. And this is our biggest concern. We talk about those who are seeking services voluntarily, and they wait for months sometimes to get in. They're accessing services through emergency departments. And as Megan said so eloquently, they're also being involuntarily committed even when they go voluntarily. So how, pray tell, is this going to solve any of that? We don't have a front door. We don't have a real solution to any of the housing. We have no place for folks to really go. So I think these are the issues that are most concerning to us at Cal Voices. You know, we know that FSPs work, but do you really think it's okay to give it to somebody who doesn't want it before somebody who does? And last but not least, it's always going to be a civil rights issue. It is a civil rights issue, and we have to be on the right side of history. Sac County has been on the right side of history. I hope you would continue to be so and opt out of this program. Thank you so much tonight.
Thank you very much. Now we have Kaino Hopper, followed by Patrick Kennedy. Oh, one moment, we need to unmute you.
Thank you. I just want to say that you may not have already heard, but I was a part of graduate level disability studies. And one of the big concepts is nothing about me without me. And I think one of the issues from families is that for too long, things have been done without including family in the nothing about me without me conversation. And that, I think, could have made a difference, and we wouldn't be faced with this big question today. The other issue for families is that the value of our work that we provide for Sacramento County has not yet been calculated to counterbalance what would happen if we all went on strike. If we all finally said, this is too much for us, we're working 24/7, 365, we don't get the work breaks that the FSP workers get, we don't get vacations, we don't get any of that. And I think that's an added value that we give to Sac County that has yet to be calculated. So the comments about the budgets and where the budgets are, I really believe that to include what a family needs and what we need and what our family member needs to cooperate with us to create that healing environment that we try to do. We only speak up once that healing environment has stopped working due to biological chemistry in the brain that prevents them from working with us. So I would ask that, we put that up for grabs, that our work is also considered as a valuable part that saves money in the budget, because with AOT or something similar, we would be able to continue to offer that housing and not impact the hospitals and not impact the already overcrowded housing market. We want to do it. We just need help when the symptoms are out of our control and we can't secure help with our family member. So nothing about me as a family member without me also. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have our final public comment by Supervisor Patrick Kennedy.
Thank you. And I had not planned on being the final speaker, but first of all, Janine, thank you for doing this. You're doing a fantastic job. My name's Patrick Kennedy. I'm a Sacramento County Supervisor. And I just really wanted to just get on to hear all of what you have to say today. And really, I wasn't going to speak. I was just here to listen and learn. But I felt compelled to get on just to say how impressed I am and how much I appreciate the commitment to taking what is essentially an extremely emotional issue, and all of you for taking the time to be here, but also the respectful tone in which this conversation is happening, because this is a conversation that, because of the level of emotion, can deteriorate into something not as respectful. And so I just, on behalf of, if I may, on behalf of my colleagues on the Board of Supervisors, thank you all for being a part of this conversation. It's extremely important. And thank you for the respect that you've shown today for your fellow Sacramento County residents. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Kennedy. And I would like to also echo my deep gratitude and appreciation for all of our participants today, for everyone who chose to spoke, for everyone who listened, and for everyone who is providing their thoughts and comments through the survey. So again, we will share the link in the chat to the survey. If you have not yet completed it, we invite you to please share your thoughts. If you have already completed it, thank you. Please do not take it again. We only want to have one response per person here. And at the bottom of the survey, you'll see an option for you to add your email address if you would like us to send you the final report, which is the same report that will go to the Board of Supervisors. So we invite you to do that. And we are also going to be sharing some links in the chat, in addition to the survey, of additional resources. So if you are interested, you can read, I'll briefly highlight some resources that we're sharing. It is, first of all, the preliminary report that we've shared earlier and mentioned that has the survey findings thus far. We also have a Department of Healthcare Services report on Laura's Law and AOT that has data from several counties that have implemented it. And then we have a presentation from Cal Voices on Laura's Law and AOT from consumer perspectives. And then with that, I want to again reiterate thanks to everyone for spending your time with us today, for very thoughtfully engaging, and for maintaining the tone of respect and appreciation for one another that is so important in order for us to meaningfully engage in difficult topics such as this. So thank you again, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening.